Hello everyone and welcome to my guide for Living Liquid in the Epic of Alexander, also known as Alexander Ultimate. Now this is what many consider to be one of the hardest phases in the hardest fight in the game, so please have some patience and determination. If your group doesn't get through it the first time, or even after the first few days, or possibly weeks, do not get discouraged. This will take you some time. On that note, before you head into this first phase, you're going to need to establish a few different things. Number one, you're going to need to know which damage dealer is picking up which Yagdoll, and I will get to Yagdolls later. You're also going to need to know who is baiting what Protean waves from what whirlpools. You're going to need to know whether your group is using a true north orientation or a relative north orientation based on where the whirlpools spawn. I recommend the latter. You will also need to know who is baiting what Protean waves in what directions from Living Liquid himself for the two different Protean wave portions of this phase that come throughout the phase. With that said, let's get started. Now, the first thing that's going to happen as we head in here is going to be a cleaving tank buster known as Fluid Swing. So as soon as we run in, you're going to see me turn the boss away from the group. Now I try and position him almost directly center, a little bit off center toward the north. This is so that when Living Liquid spawns his liquid hand, it's easier for my off tank Zernin to pick it up. So I turn him around, I put up some mitigation. Now a quick note for Paladins here. I'm not going to have Sheltron up for this first tank buster, but you can use Passage of Arms as a way to guarantee that block instead, which is what you'll see me do. Now, I only do this because we kill the boss before a few mechanics before his enrage. If you are running up close to that enrage, do not use your Passage of Arms here because you will need it for the last few AoEs. Now after that he's going to do a raid wide called Cascade, and you'll see once he casts that Cascade there will be 3 whirlpools that spawn around the room. So we got a whirlpool, let's see here, here, and here. Okay. From each of those whirlpools, very soon here, is going to be a cleave called a Protean wave. Those Protean waves are baited based on proximity, so whoever is closest to the whirlpool will bait the cleave in their direction. So as I was saying before, you want to have assigned ahead of time who is baiting which Protean wave from what whirlpool. We have our white mage go to our relative south. We use the open spaces relative north. We have our white mage go to the relative south whirlpool and bait it toward the relative west. We have our Machinist go to the relative east whirlpool and bait it toward relative north. And we have our black mage go to the relative west whirlpool and bait it toward relative north. You're also going to want to pull Living Liquid to the edge, and you want to pull Liquid Hand in the opposite direction of wherever you pull Living Liquid to. This is because the Liquid Hand will form into either a palm if baited away from Living Liquid, or a fist if baited close to Living Liquid. And whichever form he forms into, he will need to be in the opposite proximity for the rest of the time that he is in that form. So we bait Liquid Hand away from Living Liquid, form him into a palm, and then keep him next to Living Liquid for the rest of the duration. We do that to get as much cleaving damage as possible because the DPS check in this fight can be quite tight. But because you also need to keep both of their health bars relatively close to each other, within 5% health of each other in fact, it may be better for your group to keep them away if it's hard to manage your cleaving damage and you are constantly finding someone accidentally putting one over or under the other with a stray cleave. Then it might be easier for you guys to keep them apart so that you can specify which one gets damaged at what time to not go over those thresholds. We kept them near each other for the added cleaves. Now, another thing on positioning for Living Liquid. Later in the fight, the 3 whirlpools are going to spawn Emboluses. These are blue balls. They move toward where Living Liquid is standing when they spawn. If these blue balls hit anyone in the raid, or Living Liquid himself, or the Liquid Hand, they will explode and kill everyone. So because we have most of our group standing at relative north over here in the open space, we don't want all the Emboluses, the blue balls, moving toward that area. That would be very bad because it would come in the path of all of our raid members. So instead of moving Living Liquid to that open space, we drag him over here in between the south and east whirlpools, so that when those Emboluses spawn, they move over there and stay away from the rest of the raid group. So you're going to see me drag Living Liquid over there, and Liquid Hand gets dragged away. You can't see it because there's a big Living Liquid in our way, but Liquid Hand is on the other end of the arena. And it's just there for a short moment. As soon as you see him change into the palm, your off tank is going to gap close back to Living Liquid, and you're also going to see me provoke the Liquid Hand at that same time in just a couple seconds here. So there's the provoke and the gap close. Now I'm tanking both the Liquid Hand and Living Liquid at this point because they're both about to do another tank buster, another fluid swing. Now at the same time that fluid swing's going off, there's also going to be the 3 Protean waves from each of the whirlpools. Now the way those Protean waves work, if we back up just a little bit here, first they're going to telegraph a cleave that is dodgeable, and then they're going to do an untelegraphed one that you have to take to the face. Because of that pattern, your people who are baiting those Protean waves need to first bait the telegraphed one, then move out of it, then move back into where it was to bait the second untelegraphed one. I'll show you that in just a second here. Okay, so here's the telegraphed cleave here. Okay, it's a little hard to see from my camera angle, and I do apologize, but they are there. Okay, and you see my ranged people move out of that telegraphed AoE. And then they move back into it and take a cleave to the face. There's that second cleave right there. And I can't really see the one on the other end of the arena, but trust me, Sebastian right here is getting hit by a cleave as well. So at that same time, fluid swing is going off. right? And I put up my hollowed ground to take care of that fluid swing from both living liquid and the liquid hand. Because I'm using an invuln here, and you may wish to do this for your group as well, it is possible for the tank that is using their invuln at that point to also bait the Protean waves from the middle whirlpool here. If that were the case, I would have been standing like right here to bait that cleave. But it's not necessary. You could have one of your ranged players baiting those cleaves either way. You may find it easier to have your invulning tank do those baits so that you're not having to heal up that cleave damage. Whatever works best for your group. If you are going to have your invuln tank bait those cleaves, though, make sure that your other tank is the fuck out of the way, probably behind the boss with your melee damage dealer there. Now, one more thing I'm going to cover for this portion of the fight right here is these 4 Yagdolls that spawn. The Yagdolls always spawn in the same exact locations, but because your whirlpools, there is a 4th one behind Living Liquid as well, because your whirlpools spawn in random locations and we're using relative positioning based on the whirlpool spawns, in relation to that relative positioning, your Yagdolls are going to be in a different position every time. I know that's a little confusing, but just keep in mind that when you're assigning what damage dealer picks up what Yagdoll, you're going to need to assign them to 2 different cardinal or intercardinal positions. In order to limit the confusion of which Yagdoll they're picking up. For example, our Samurai always picks up the relative east or southeast Yagdoll. Our Dragoon always picks up the relative south or southwest Yagdoll. Etc., etc. around the circle. You're also going to want to keep in mind when you are going to feed these Yagdolls, and there are several different patterns of how they can be fed. What I mean by feeding a Yagdoll is that you need to get them down to 24% health or lower before moving them next to Living Liquid or the Liquid Hand in order to be tethered to one of those 2 targets. Once they get tethered, they will explode and damage the entire raid. If they are at 25% health or above, they will kill everyone. And if you kill the Yagdoll, it will also explode and kill everyone. So you have to make very specific damage on them in order to get them into that sweet spot between 24% health and 1% health before feeding them to Living Liquid or the Liquid Hand. Now what our group does is, as soon as the Embolus's spawn, no matter what positioning you're doing, you're going to have to move Living Liquid and Liquid Hand to the center of the arena. And as we're moving the boss to the center of the arena, we first feed the doll that is closest to him. Then we feed our other melee's doll to him once he hits the center. And then we feed the last 2 dolls after the 3rd Fluid Swing Tank Buster. And I'll get to that in a minute. You can feed 1 at a time, you can feed 2 and 2, you can feed 1, 2, 1, whatever you want to do. We do our feeding in that order. Just make sure that you guys are on the same page of when you're doing your feeds, so your healers know when they have to do what healing. So he does the fluid swing. My off tank evokes back the liquid hand, and then the Embolus is spawned. And we're going to back up a little bit and show you those Emboluses. There they are. Now one of these is going to spawn from each of the whirlpools. And again, as soon as they spawn, they're going to move toward where living liquid is at that moment. So they're moving over here. And because they're moving over there, the tanks and the bosses need to get the fuck out of there. So we're going to start moving toward the center of the arena. And here you can see our second Yagdoll being fed, and there's the tether that indicates it's being fed. These first two feeds, if you're using this pattern, have to happen very quickly, because one last thing I didn't cover about the Yagdolls is that they also put out an exhaust. Exhaust is a point-blank AoE around the Yagdolls themselves. It happens at 3 different points throughout the fight. The first time they cast it is as soon as they spawn. And if anyone gets hit by more than one exhaust, they will explode and kill everyone. So it's a little difficult to see, but right as just a few GCDs after they spawn, all 4 of them are exploding right there. I'm going to try and back up and give you a better picture of that. Right there. So these circles here are the exhausts given out by the Yagdolls. And as you can see, they're overlapping in the center as soon as they spawn. So no one wants to be anywhere near the center of the arena when the Yagdolls spawn. And if you're a melee damage dealer trying to pick up your Yagdoll, you want to stand on the outside edge of your Yagdoll. Remember, you can't step in the whirlpool. That's danger zone. And you don't want to be in between any of these Yagdolls, also danger zone. So if I were our samurai right now, I'd want to be standing roughly right here, attacking my Yagdoll. Okay? It is okay to get hit by one exhaust. It is not okay to get hit by more than one. And you can see, based on these debuffs here, all 3 of these people got hit by one exhaust, but that's fine. They can survive one hit. They're not going to explode. Works out just fine. So stay on the outside edge of your Yagdoll in order to attack it. Whoever is the first to hit a Yagdoll will be tethered by that Yagdoll, and there is nothing that can pull aggro off of them. Evoke won't work, nothing. So you have to make sure whichever Yagdoll you're assigned to, you hit it ASAP, and do not use AoEs. Please, please, please do not use AoEs. It is very hard to do the exact amount of damage to get the Yagdolls in that sweet spot between 24% and 1% health. AoEs can mess up that exact formula very easily and very quickly, so please, please, please be careful with your AoEs. So they do that exhaust right as they spawn, and they would do another exhaust here just after we get the living liquid and liquid hand to the center of the arena. So the first 2 Yagdolls that we're feeding need to be fed very quickly. Otherwise, they'll do both of their exhausts in the center and they'll kill everyone. And you're going to see Sebastian's give off his exhaust right there. See? not seconds after we fed the first two, these remaining two put off their exhaust. So very quick feeding with those first two feeds. Now after that, there's going to be another fluid swing from both Living Liquid himself and the Liquid Hand. So we're going to face those targets relative south, while the rest of the group is relative north. And you can see this Embolus that spawned from this whirlpool and moved in this direction was just outside of me getting clipped by it. So the rest of your group is safe from those Emboluses because they're all in this relative north portion. But your tanks do have to be a little careful. It travels right across the tank's path. So we're facing them north. We took that fluid swing, and immediately after we took that fluid swing, you can see this Yagdoll being fed. Our Machinus is feeding his Yagdoll right now as well. It's important that this last set of Yagdolls either gets fed immediately after that fluid swing, or if you're not going to be able to feed it fast enough there, keep it outside at the edge of the arena and feed it after its final exhaust, because it will do one more exhaust if it's still alive just a few seconds after this. A note on the ranged Yagdolls. Let's go back to watch them picking up their Yagdolls. When the ranged Yagdolls get picked up, they get dragged out to the edge of the arena here. And then you, as a ranged player, after you've dragged your Yagdoll out, want to move yourself back to the center of the arena. Okay? You want to be in range of AoE healing, but you want your Yagdoll as far out to the edge as possible so that it's not clipping anyone with its exhaust. Okay. So, we face the bosses north, they do their fluid swing, the Yagdolls get fed, and then, I'm sorry, we face the bosses south. Now we're facing we're putting the entire party, at relative north here, because we're about to go into Protean waves. Now you can use this method. You could also put both your tanks at relative south in order to bait a Protean wave to the relative south every time. What I mean there is Living Liquid is going to do a Protean wave cleave, a frontal cleave with every set of Protean waves that goes out on each player. Now the way Protean waves works is first we're going to bait a telegraphed Protean wave on all 8 players, and we're going to try to bait it in the same direction. Again, you could have your tanks on the opposite end of the boss here, and that would be fine. We like to keep Living Liquid faced toward the open area so that it's well away from where everyone else is positioning. Either way. So everyone's going to bait a telegraphed Protean wave first, and then they're going to move into their positions. So there's our telegraphed Protean wave. Again, there's 8 of them overlapping in this area. And we all get the heck out of there. And then we're moving into our positions. Now, at the same time, after that first set, at the same time, Living Liquid is going to do 4 Protean waves on the 4 closest targets to him. And he's going to do 4 puddles on the 4 farthest targets away from him. The reason we use the positioning that we do is because this positioning can be consistent between the first set of Protean waves and the second set of Protean waves that happens later in this phase. Okay. It also gives us ample distance to keep our melee players well away from our ranged players. As you can see, this whole northeast quadrant is melee. This whole southeast quadrant is ranged. The whole southwest quadrant is melee, and the whole northwest quadrant is range. We do that because we want to keep the Protean waves from cleaving players they're not intended from. So I'm going to bait a Protean wave toward northeast. My samurai is baiting directly east. My dragoon is baiting directly west, and my warrior is baiting southwest. And then my white mage and machinist are heading to southeast corner, and my black mage and scholar are heading out to the northwest corner. Okay, so immediately after that second Protean wave hits, the melee moves out to max melee in their quadrant. So you're going to see myself and the samurai both move out here, and the dragoon and warrior will both move out here. And all of our ranged players come inside the boss's hitbox. You want to be very sure that they are closer to the boss than the melee players. So they move inside the boss's hitbox while our melee move out to max melee. And that's it. Now, next thing that's going to happen here is drainage. Your two tanks are going to be tethered randomly by 2 of the 3 whirlpools. You can see those tethers here. Now, these tethers can be taken off the tanks. You do not want to do that, so be very sure that before those tethers go out, all of your group is relative north. I want to mention that I've been treating the open space as relative north. You could very well treat it as relative south for your group. It doesn't matter as long as everyone is on the same page. So we have all of our group relative north, while our 2 tanks are relative south with those tethers. And the drainage that comes out from those tethers hits rather hard. So we use our second invuln here. Our warrior is going to home gang. He's also going to evoke the living liquid off of me while he has that invuln up. Because the only mitigation I have for this drainage at this point is Sheltron. You're also going to see me put up Reprisal. Reprisal will cover both of those. Well, I don't think it helps on the drainage because they're coming from the whirlpool and not the boss himself, but it helps with all the ground pounds that the boss is about to do, as well as the cascade afterwards. So drainage goes off. It is a rather large AoE, so you saw both myself and the other tank move out to max melee before it went off. And Cascade is about to hit as well. Now Cascade again is a raid-wide AoE, so you need plenty of mitigation there for the damage that's going on the tank, the ground pounds that are happening, and the Cascade. Every time he casts Cascade, he spawns 3 new whirlpools, so now you have a new relative north and a new relative south. And you're going to see all of us stack in the new relative north because another set of Protean waves is about to hit. Now, just before these Protean waves, you see us all 6 of our 8 raid members get hit by this throttle debuff. Okay, that needs to be dispelled with Asuna ASAP. You have 10 seconds to dispel all 8 raid members. At most, one healer can dispel 4 of them by themselves within that 10-second time frame. So you're going to want to assign to each healer who's doing top to bottom or who's doing bottom to top. Make sure you have the same party list for each healer, and typically they will always dispel themselves. So we do our second set of Protean waves here. This second set of Protean waves comes with Protean waves from the boss and the same Protean waves that we saw in the first part of this fight from each whirlpool. So you're going to see our ranged bait the telegraphed cone from the whirlpool. Just doing the same positioning they were before. They automatically bait the telegraphed cones, and you can see the telegraphed cones out right there. Just by doing the same positioning they had before. That is why I use this positioning for my group. You're not going to see this positioning in a lot of other groups, but we did it for consistency. And then, instead of just going out to max melee, our melee people in the group are heading out to each whirlpool to bait the untelegraphed cone, to take that to the face. Because our relative southwest portion of the arena has 2 people in it, you're going to see my off-tank and my Dragoon wedge themselves as far in that corner as they can without touching the wall or the whirlpool they're next to, so that they're not baiting that last cone into each other. And then my samurai heads down here to bait the cone away from, well, me. And that's it as far as our strategy is concerned. Now, we were talking about before about how Living Liquid and Liquid Hand need to stay within 5% health of each other. You'll notice right now they are well away from 5% health of each other. Living Liquid's at 2%, Liquid Hand is at 11%. This is because they only need to be within 5% health of each other each time the Liquid Hand casts Hand of Pain. Now, he casts Hand of Pain at several parts throughout the fight, so for the majority of the fight you will need them within that threshold. But there is a time frame between the second to last Hand of Pain and the final Hand of Pain, where if you kill Living Liquid, you've gotten through the phase. It doesn't matter what Liquid Hand's health is at, as long as you kill Living Liquid. So as soon as that second to last Hand of Pain hits, we start going balls to the walls on Living Liquid to kill him before the last Hand of Pain hits. So this last cascade goes out, and then there's throttles, and then Protean waves start, and then there's a Hand of Pain. And you can already see we've already switched all damage to Living Liquid. We're not damaging Liquid Hand at all at this point, except for AoEs and cleaves. And there's a Protean wave that goes out and a Hand of Pain. So that's the second to last Hand of Pain there. And if Living Liquid is still alive, Liquid Hand is going to cast one more Hand of Parting and one more Hand of Pain right here. He doesn't cast it because we kill him before that, but that is when another Hand of Pain would happen. Some other things that happen if the fight goes on longer. So you see that when my warrior went out to bait his Protean wave, he stayed out there for a little longer so that the liquid hand formed into the palm again. So liquid hand will do either palm or fist at this point. So keep that in mind and wait for it before coming back to the boss. There will also be emboluses that spawn from each of your whirlpools at this point, which is why I moved the boss fairly far south in between each of these whirlpools. I'm sorry, fairly far relative north for our group, in between each of these whirlpools. And again, those emboluses are going to move toward wherever living liquid is at the time that they spawn. Because of that, if you are going to keep going in this fight a little bit longer, remember you would need them within 5% of the health of each other here. You would also need to move living liquid either to this relative northeast position here or this relative northwest position here, and then you would drag him across the arena as soon as the emboluses spawn, so that they all move to that spot and they don't overlap living liquid or the liquid hand as they're moving over there. He's also going to do one last set of ground pounds, one last fluid swing on the main tank, and one last cascade. That last cascade is the enrage. And that is the entire first phase of the fight, guys. I know that explanation went on a little long, especially for just a 2-minute encounter, but there is a lot going on here. Be patient, you will get through it. I'm going to leave a link with the toolbox that I set up for my group in the description below. I hope it helps you guys as well. Leave any comments if you have any questions. By all means, I will try to answer them. Best of luck in your prog, and thanks for watching. First up, tank buster. Next is raid one. In position, make your cones. Next is feet. Next is tank buster. Stack mill. Drainage. All DPS putting liquid. Back north this spot. Finish it.